With My Hero Academia on break until the new year along with the rest of our weekly series, we fortunately still have Vigilantes. My Hero Academia Vigilantes is a spin-off series from the main story, with events taking place prior to the main story. We get this question often in the comments, so I'll address it right here. Vigilantes is in fact canon, and has given us plenty of great character backstories that the main story has up to this point not included. For example, the origin of the hero killer Stain, and the origin of Eraserhead Aizawa, both of which are stories we've covered already on the channel, so if you haven't seen those, do be sure to check them out after you finish watching this video. With that said, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on to never miss an upload. Now, let's get into this. The chapter opens up at All Might's headquarters, where we see the roof opening up to allow for his entrance. This is of course extremely extra, but I respect the stylish entrance. Upon arrival, All Might would be met by a horde of reporters, all of which had questions ready for the man himself. There were a couple pieces of dialogue worth noting. Apparently, upon finishing his most recent work, All Might had set a new record for consecutive incidents resolved over the past couple days. And while that is impressive and makes sense when you consider the power of All Might, things like this make it hard to believe Endeavor is the one with the most resolved incidents. But anyway, in his response to this new record, All Might then literally goes out of his way to lie and refer to his power as something he was born with. I thought that was pretty interesting. Hiding the truth is one thing, but for him to refer to his quirk as something he was born with unprovoked felt strange. But hey, maybe that's just me. From there, All Might would change into his more comfortable sleep attire and stop by the office of Sir Night-Eye. In true workaholic fashion, All Might would ask if there were any more urgent jobs to get to before he goes for a rest. Sir Night-Eye would shut all that down and insist on All Might getting rest. Apparently he'd been working for over 72 hours straight, which is pretty severe overtime. And I can't stress enough how good it is to see Sir Night-Eye here again in some way. Moving on, we then get a close-up shot of this younger, very tired All Might as he expresses a hope that the world remain at peace for at least half a day, which would allow him to get some rest. This hope would quickly fall because All Might would suddenly twitch. His, and I quote, "might sense and might ears sensed danger. There was an emergency request in Osaka." Now, this could be pure coincidental timing, but I can't help but think about danger sense here, a neat little reference for sure, if intentional. Now, in Osaka, the might signal, which is an emergency All Might paging system, would go off. Pretty hilarious looking stuff, but it also just goes to show how big All Might really was during his career. This wasn't a hero signal, it was specifically for All Might. Everyone now knew All Might was coming. Night-Eye would bring up the possibility of calling in other heroes, but like I said, they were calling for All Might specifically, so in a flash, All Might got ready and took off like a rocket headed for Osaka. Back at the commotion, Rappa and O'Clock were still in combat with the hooded Nomu-like figure. Miracle had left the scene and All Might was on his way, so to O'Clock, his job was done, but Rappa, being stubborn as usual, had no interest in now backing off. O'Clock now finally understood just how unhinged Rappa really is, and also understood this wasn't going to end easily. The hooded figure was having a grand time, as was Rappa, but O'Clock, who was also in this fight, was only focused on holding out until All Might was able to arrive. With All Might on his way, this looked like a loss for the villains and the end of their show, but then came a solution. All for One would here ask Kurogiri to assist. Back at the scene, black fogs would begin appearing on the downed bodies. It was All for One using Kurogiri to easily activate his quirk on unsuspecting individuals. And this is just like cheat codes, this is just unfair. To be able to touch anyone with All for One without even being nearby is just insane, and just goes to show how smart and absolutely brilliant All for One truly is. We would then get some dialogue between All for One and Kurogiri, basically another infamous All for One speech, this one being on the term villain. He'd start by saying the term is too emotionally charged to describe a class of criminal. The term quirk criminal would better fit, going further to state that the concept should be defined by the relationship between a person's will and their quirk. When the quirk and the will support each other to form a concrete resolve, those are heroes, but when a violent will stimulates a quirk or a quirk twists one's will, that creates the framework for a villain. Basically stating that this imbalance is the core of villainous behavior, and that then with his power he can turn anyone into a villain by destroying the balance that exists. And we then see just that. The individuals All For One had earlier touched with the help of Kurogiri were now running rampant. Miracle would be forced to fight again, and the villains would charge out, forcing civilians to flee the area in panic. Kurogiri would express to All For One that they've gone too far, and that this incident will now certainly lead back to them. All For One could only respond that he's guilty as charged. He's willing to go this far to see O'Clock fight, and even possibly get a hold of that quirk. The strange Nomu-like creature would expand and change form a bit in preparation for its next attack also at this time. While he's going pretty far here, we have to remember that All For One is, in a way, addicted to stealing quirks. When there is a quirk he desires, he simply must have it, no matter what. This was a pretty interesting chapter. Seeing All Might in his prime with Night Eye is exactly the type of content that I think a lot of us have been wanting. It's important to note that this is before All Might's major injury. While All For One isn't currently on the scene, it's not impossible for him to show up there at some point in this conflict. Vigilante has always served as a way of providing background that the main story neglects to, so I wouldn't put it past Horikoshi to use Vigilante to tell one of All Might's biggest stories before later mentioning only pieces of it in the main story, essentially what happened with Aizawa's story. And if you don't remember exactly what I'm referring to, I'm talking about the fact that in Vigilantes, we were given the full backstory of Aizawa, his time at UA, and how he ended up becoming a pro hero. This was never told in the main story. However, in the manga we did receive bits and pieces of it, for example mention of Aizawa once having a friend named Shirakumo who passed away before graduation. What'll happen next is anyone's best guess, but I imagine we'll first see All Might swiftly defeat all those small time villains running wild before making his way to the true enemy. It'll be a long 2-week wait, but to say the least I am excited, and I hope all of you are as well. And luckily, while we do wait for this next chapter, My Hero Academia's main story will be back after what will have been its 2-week hiatus as well. We are approaching the end of the year, and what a year it has been. Here on Plot Armor, in the last year we've gone from roughly 6,000 subscribers to now over 125,000 subscribers. I know Slice mentioned it in one of our other videos, but I'd like to acknowledge it here myself and just say thank you. Looking forward to finishing the year strong with you guys, and of course going even stronger in the next year. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't already, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to Plot Armor to never miss an upload. We upload almost daily and would love to have you join in on our discussions. To further support the channel, check out our Patreon link in the description below. Until next time, keep that Plot Armor on you. I'm KJ. Have a great day. Goodbye.